Hi, in this episode, we are talking to Jennifer Cooper. Jennifer, in a few words, can you tell everyone who you are and what you do? And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate it. It's good to join you today. And I'm looking forward to, talking to you a little bit about data science and some other topics. So I'm a strategic analytics professional, just like my LinkedIn profile says. I've been working with analytics for about 13 years or so. Prior to that, I was in various sales and marketing positions, and was always interested in problem solving, even from the time I was younger. I always loved, math and science. And so that's kind of how I always approached things was from sort of a problem solving perspective. So my experience spans multiple industries. I've worked in financial services, healthcare, advertising and business services, as well as technology and telecommunications. So yeah, from a broad sort of professional level, that's my a little bit about me.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of experience in the industry. So that will lead to my next question. Like, how did you get into data science? Did you always work in sort of this industry, or did you switch from a different kind of industry? How did that happen?
Well, that's a great question. And some may argue that they may say, well, gosh, she's not really a data scientist because she's a data analyst. So the first thing I always say is, there's so many different areas, right, underneath data science.
Yep.
I didn't consider myself a data scientist, to be fair, until a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only because I became educated on the topic myself. And I've continued to hone my skills and improve my skills. But in terms of your ask and how I came to be an analyst, it was actually just out of serendipity. It was just sort of out of sheer luck and happenstance that it came about. I had actually been through several layoffs within the telecommunications and technology sector, as I mentioned previously. And I had finished my MBA, and I was just at a point where, I knew I needed to make a change. I'd been through a layoff, and I actually worked for myself for a short time. I did some consulting, and just decided I needed to do another full-time opportunity. And it was a really good time for me to sort of kind of take stock of myself and figure out if I still wanted to continue to work in sales and marketing, because at that time it was a very volatile, role to have.
Yeah.
I had to think about, what are some of the areas that are going to be more marketable for me from a career perspective. And it was really interesting. I just got a call out of the blue from a recruiter, and she said, I have this analyst role at a financial services company. Would you be interested in interviewing? And I said, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've never even thought of working in financial services, particularly as an analyst, but I'd always, like I said, been interested in problem solving. And so I just jumped on it. And luckily the company was, willing to train me. They said, I knew nothing about SQL. I think the only programming I had taken at that point was maybe some Pascal and Visual Basic. And I remember taking some Fortran back when I was in middle school. I had a math teacher that was just really wonderful. And so kind of, it sort of just, opened our eyes to that sort of thing when I was young. But yeah, I had no experience, and they just trained me. They took me into a room, and I had a colleague that just taught me the SQL syntax, and, everything just sort of took off from there. It just, I fell in love with it, and I've been working in that industry. Although I've done these other, worked in these other areas, I've been working predominantly in the finance sector now, since 2006.
Wow, that's really great story. Like you come from that background, and then you started off with learning SQL. Then you had a step-by-step progress into where you are now at the moment. So that's really great. What would be if someone wants to get into data science? What, in your opinion, from your experience, is the first step that they should take when they are deciding to start on the journey?
Well, the first thing I always ask people is, why do you want to be a data scientist, right? I mean, it's sort of had this kind of sexy sort of sound to it for a while, ever since the idea sort of reared its head.
Yeah.
People have been excited about it. It's certainly, attracted a lot of interest. There's a lot of people in the field that come from various backgrounds. You've got physicists, you've got computer science, you've got engineers. I mean, I would say, why do you want to do it? what's important to what is it about data science that excites you? Because passion is a key ingredient, I believe, to becoming, taking that first step to becoming a data scientist or working with data in general. I think you have to have natural curiosity and, really enjoy, like I said, solving problems. The second thing I would say is, depending on where you're at in your career, whether you're starting out fresh out of school or you've been working for a while, I think it's important, like I said earlier, to always take stock of yourself and where you're at in the process. So let's say you've been working in, I don't know, like sales and marketing like I was, right? I think it's important to be very self-aware and make a list of those transferable skills. Maybe you've just been in school and you've been taking classes and you're just not sure where to start. I think it's identifying your strengths and your weaknesses, and like I said, become educated on what the different areas of data science are. If you're interested in data visualization, for example, you want to get to know people in that field that are, the leading influencers. For example, Kate Strachnyi, maybe, Nadia Bremer, get to know the people that are doing Makeover Monday, practice and do projects and, figure out where your weaknesses are, work on those, develop a continuous learning mindset, and, like I said, are really influential in the field. And, find a good mentor. Maybe that's more than one person. Maybe it could be a family friend. It could be just, somebody that you met on LinkedIn, but find somebody who you admire and respect that's in the field, and tell them what you want to do, what you're interested in. And like I said, identify the classes that you need to take, get to know the people, and, identify the companies that you'd like to work for. And I would just say learn as much as you can about the area that you're interested in. And become very hungry for knowledge and do projects, code every day, do projects, and just throw yourself into it.
Yeah, some really, really great points there. So to sum it up what you've said there, so first find out like why you want to get into this field, find your why you want to do this, then take stock and find your strengths and weaknesses, then find the influencer in that area. For example, if you want to go into visualization, then find the influencer in that area, and then finally work on that weakness, find a mentor, and practice. Yeah. So some really good points there. So that leads me to my next question regarding the skills. So data science is an umbrella term, like I said before, and then there's different roles inside it. What in your opinion are some of the core skills that would be needed to get into data science?
Well, that's also a really good question, because depending on whether you want to go into academia or if you want to work in business, public or private sector, yep. I think you have to, like I said, sort of understand what it is you're aspiring to do, what area you're aspiring to be in. For me, as an analyst, I think it requires, like I said, some very good basic problem-solving skills and natural curiosity. It requires some business acumen, being able to go into a situation and not just look at the data, right, but, be able to think more broadly and at a high level about, what's happening around the business, what's happening from a regulatory, macroeconomic, competitive level, type of thing. It's not getting so hung up on the data that you can't see beyond that and see around corners and anticipate, problems and questions. From a base just skill, like math and science, I would say certainly understanding, having some good base math level skills, whether it's algebra, statistics. And I'm not talking about, advanced statistics. I don't think you necessarily need that, to be a successful analyst or data scientist, depending on, like I said, what you're going to be going into. Now, some will say, no, that's not true because, they're doing whatever. But I think just to be an analyst or to start out, it's showing that curiosity, it's showing that passion, it's having some basic skills. Don't balk at things like Excel. Excel still has a place in this world. Learn the basic tools, have a toolbox, right? So know what those basic tools are. Learn as much as you can about Excel, learn as much as you can about SQL, about databases, and then soft skills, right? So knowing how to communicate with people, knowing how to ask good questions, knowing how to communicate the outcomes and the results, and being able to speak in the language of your audience. So if I'm giving a presentation to an executive, team, it's going to be a whole different level, than I'm talking to someone maybe that's more of a peer, or maybe in another department or in another industry, right? That doesn't know anything. So you have to sort of think, what's that common denominator, right? Be able to explain things to a 5-year-old is kind of what I say.
That's right, yeah.
And don't overcomplicate it. Just because you're given a problem doesn't mean you need to apply machine learning or do some sophisticated, build some sophisticated algorithm in Python or whatever. It's just being able to communicate insights and being able to translate that into business outcomes. So how is this going to move the needle? Is it going to increase revenue? Is it going to lower costs? Is it going to make things more efficient? Those are the, I just said a lot, but that's sort of the continuum of skills, right? That I think at the very least you need to have.
Okay, yeah, so some great tips there. Like like you said, it depends on which area you want to go into. Like if you're a data engineer or a machine learning engineer, or is it a data scientist?
Yep.
But some of the core skills that would need is a bit of algebra, some statistics, and then like you said, Excel has a place. So companies at this point assume that you have Excel knowledge. They don't usually put that in the job description because you're expected to know that.
Right.
And then finally, just practice and learn what is required in that particular area, and have some projects to show, and then take it from there. As far as when they are looking for different courses and things, one thing that keeps coming up all the time is this confusion between R and Python. So that is always the case. Some people are really R enthusiasts. Some are like, oh no, Python is better. So what is your take on that? If someone wants to start that journey?
Well, I do hear a lot about the Python versus R debate, and I've gotten caught in the crosshairs a couple of times myself. I prefer not to think of things in a binary way, as an either or, black and white. I think sometimes the best answers are sometimes found in the gray, a blend of things. I look at it as, I tell people when I explain this, I use an analogy of having a toolbox at home that you use to repair appliances, or if you have a plumbing problem or you're trying to install artwork on the wall. I always have a Phillips head screwdriver and I have a flathead screwdriver. Well, Python might be your flathead, right? And then R is your Phillips head. Sometimes you're going to need one, sometimes you'll need the other. I love doing data wrangling in R. I think it's got a lot, with dplyr and the tidyverse, you've got a lot of really great tools to do some basic data wrangling and munging and data prep for machine learning. But I also really love scikit-learn. On the Python side, I think it's very intuitive from a machine learning perspective. And there's so many packages, as there are on the R side. So I think it depends on your own personal preference. It depends on the problem you're trying to solve. It depends on your skill level, right? So maybe you're better at R than you are at Python, but maybe you want to go work for an employer and they say, well, we need you to know Python. Let's learn Python. And you start taking courses, right? So try to get out of the either or. Lately, for example, I just started a new role and I'm being required to use SAS. I haven't used SAS in years, but once you learn how to ride a bike, it's not that difficult to pick it back up, right? So it's knowing SAS, it's knowing SQL. So it's not an either or. I see it as both.
Okay, yeah, that's really good advice to aspirants. Like instead of getting confused about which tool to choose, just even end of the day, these are tools to get the job done. So just choose one, learn to do the job. Then it's always, if you're expected to use another, like if you're using R and if you're expected to use Python, it's quite transferable, those skills.
Let me caveat that. You want your data to always be as clean as you can get it, accurate. You want to know the source. You want to cite the source. But all of these things come together and they work together. Don't get caught in a vacuum of thinking, or a silo mentality of like, I can only learn R, I can only learn Python, or gosh, this guy over here is a Python person, so he can't do R. Well, no, that's not how it works.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. this current situation where we don't know, it's an unprecedented situation where this COVID-19 is, and then in every country it's showing up in its own way. So how has this affected the job market for data science? In your opinion, has it affected positively or negatively?
So for me, I think hiring in general right now it's kind of all over the place. When I was younger, finding a job, looking for a job, even changing careers from, like I said, sales and marketing to analytics was not as complicated and difficult to navigate as it is now. There are so many choices. There's so many good companies that are looking for data scientists. But as far as, what I'm seeing, I see a lot of promise for people in the field. I just think as long as you're able to, like I said, provide results and be able to move the needle and prove that you can do that, demonstrate that you've actually done that, you'll always have a job in this field. I just believe that you always will. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy to go out and find something. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and they've lost their job, or they're possibly concerned about losing their job. I have friends that I've talked to, whether they're on LinkedIn or personal friends that I know here in the Dallas area, that, most of them are doing fine, but there are some that are afraid. I talked to a who was extremely intelligent that I've known for several years now the other day, and let go from a company that he works for. And, I don't have any doubt that he'll find another job, but he really didn't know that this was going to happen. He had no idea this was going to happen. And he's in the credit risk analytics area for another company. So, your job is never, it's never guaranteed. There's really no guarantees in life, except for, I guess, what they say is death and taxes. But I think COVID is a challenge for everybody right now. I hope that what comes out of this is, I try to see the silver lining. People look at all of the opportunities that come from this, right? So it's whether it's applying analytics and machine learning and data science to the healthcare field. I mean, you see all these models, right? For example, that they're showing on TV or on the news, and everybody's trying to predict what's going to happen and when the curve is going to flatten. And I think that shows a great opportunity and gap in skills that exist for people that can really do that, because there's so many different interpretations of the data. To my answer, just because I think that it's such a broad, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not an epidemiologist,
yes.
And I'm not, an expert on, I'm not a recruiter. I'm not an expert on hiring. I can only say from personal experience that it's definitely been challenging in the Dallas area. And I think the job market in general has become very, like I said, challenging to navigate, because employers are looking, I think what they're looking for is they want you to be as well-rounded as you can. And they're trying to get as the biggest bang for their buck that they can, right? So if they talk to Nitin and they want to interview you, they want to make sure that, number one, you can really do what you say you can do. They don't want to hire you and then they find out a month later, well, you can't really do what you said you can do. Talk to at least one company that was a problem for them. Now they're gun shy about hiring somebody in the area of analytics. So being able to demonstrate that is really important. But yeah, I mean, I hope that's helpful. But it goes back to what I said in the beginning. I think as long as you're doing projects, you're keeping busy and you're continuously learning, you shouldn't be worried about it. I believe there's always going to be a place for data science, and I think you're going to continue to see that grow from this pandemic. I think people are going to be hungry for data and solutions, particularly in the healthcare space. But I know that a lot of companies have had to furlough workers. I know in the hospitality space, people that have been furloughed in analytics. I know even the healthcare space, here we have a big healthcare system called Baylor Healthcare Systems, and I know they've had to furlough some workers, or freeze some hiring within the analytics. I should be careful what I say. I don't think they furloughed. I think they had to freeze some hiring. So it's all over the place, Nitin. I just important to have a personal plan and be positive and look for the silver lining. It's there, but yeah, there's going to be some pain, and we're all going to have to suffer in our own way, I think. So.
Yeah. Yeah, some really good points there. It's the main important thing is like we don't know because we haven't experienced anything like this, so we don't know how it
Right.
will unfold. But it's always necessary to be optimistic, like you said, and always look at the silver lining. If someone wants to switch their career into data science, or someone with no technical experience want to get into data science, one thing that bothers them is like a lot of confusion around, do I need a degree to get into data science? Do I need a master's degree or PhD? There's tons of resources available online. What are some of resources that I can? So, what is your opinion on that? Like, do someone needs a master's or a PhD, or can they use their projects instead to show an employer?
Well, I think the key word in your question was opinion, right? So I can give you my opinion, but like I said, I'm not a recruiter or a hiring manager. I can tell you that if you bring up a lot of job descriptions right now in the area of data science, they're going to have PhD preferred. I run into a few that sometimes say required, but I think personally, again, this is just my opinion. I don't think that you need it. But again, this goes back to, do you want to work in academia? Are you going to work for the private or public sector? What kind of level of responsibility are you going to have? What kind of projects are you going to be doing? If you're academia, I think PhD is going to be required to do a lot of research. Maybe it's epidemiology you're interested in. I think there'll be a lot of people now out of this pandemic that will want to explore that sort of thing, and that's awesome. I'm so excited that made get even more people excited. But yeah, I just think personally, I have not. Okay, let me tell you my story. So I have an MBA, and
Okay.
I think from a business acumen perspective, being able to demonstrate that I have that level of education, and it's gotten my foot in the door. Certainly, I mean, I think a lot of job descriptions will say that they prefer an MBA or a master's level candidate, right? But in terms of my day to day, have I had to use those things that I've learned? Not really. I mean, if I get into a room and I'm with executives, it helps to be able to know what they're saying, whether it's talking about financial statements or net income, or some of the things that you learn, say, in an MBA level finance course, right? But I don't think you necessarily need to have a master's or a PhD to do a good job in the field. Again, it depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to be doing something heavy data engineering and machine learning, maybe you really do need to have an MS in computer science and statistics or something like that. I really think it comes down to personal preference and your own plan, where you want to go, and what excites you, right? If you want to get a PhD, go for it. I thought about getting a PhD. I've thought about it several times, but as a single parent, I had to make a decision early in my career. Do I want to really dedicate the time and the income, the money, to getting a PhD when I've got courses that I can take on Udemy, or on Udacity, or edX, or Experfy, or for a fraction of the cost. So I just believe in continuous learning, and any way you can go about it is great. But if a job description says PhD and you really want that job, then maybe you need to think about it. That would be my personal advice.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so some great advice there. So if you want, it's all comes down to your personal preference. If you
It does.
go down that, okay, I really want that degree. That's the only thing that make me confident to apply for that job. Then by all means, go for it. Otherwise, if you think like, oh, I'm short of time, I don't have the time to go enroll on a degree, so I'll take some courses, and then I'll do some projects and then show it on my GitHub profile and share it with the employer, so they can they can see that, okay, even though I don't have a degree, I can do the job. So then you go on that route. So it's just all personal preference, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So.
agree.
LinkedIn is a good platform where aspirers can follow a lot of people from the data science spectrum. So, can you name some of the people that share great content where aspirers can learn from their posts?
Sure. I actually saw a post this morning from somebody that tagged me as someone, and so I wanted to pay it forward and actually tagged a long list of individuals. So I would encourage you, if you follow me, to go out and definitely check out that post that I responded to this morning. But But again, it depends on the field that you're interested in. But I would say certainly, Kate Strachnyi is an excellent person to follow from a data visualization standpoint. Ben Taylor, if you're interested in AI, and Hadlin DePontis, if you're interested in AI, those two individuals are excellent content contributors. And what I really like about Ben is he makes you think outside the box. He poses some crazy questions or just thoughts sometimes, and they're provocative. They make you start thinking, right? And that's really what this is all about, is it's learning to think outside the box, challenge your own mindset, be open-minded, and be willing to take on, answer questions that maybe you haven't thought about before. So certainly those three individuals. Carol Aramenko, obviously, that's a no-brainer. Carol is, a thought leader in the space. His Data Science Go conference is outstanding. I've been a couple of years in a row, and that's an excellent way to meet new people. Volunteer to be a speaker or talk to somebody who's been there before and find out, about some of the topics that they've discussed, and you'll be able to hear about some of the speakers there. Like Gabriella is another person. I mean, the list is long of people that I admire and that would be excellent people to follow. But certainly those individuals are good. Check if you're in my network, check out my contacts. There's anybody who's in data science and AI. I encourage for them to check those people out. And to me personally, if you're interested in, if you have questions about someone in particular, and I'm happy to refer that person, or make an introduction.
Okay, so anyone watching this, make sure you follow Jennifer, and then have a go through Jennifer's contacts and see anyone that's interests you in that field that you want to take. But the three people that Jennifer mentioned are Kate, Hadlin, and Ben Taylor. So make sure you follow those three people. We almost reached the end of our interview time. So if you can give one advice to aspirers or anyone want to get into this field, what would be that?
I would say take the initiative. It's important to know other people, to know people and get to know other people in the field, but you've got to want this. Nobody can do it for you. I get a lot of questions from people, very broad questions, give me guidance, tell me how to be a data scientist, or help me find a job. Well, those are very broad asks, very big open questions, and I would love to be able to help everybody, because I mean people have helped me throughout my career, and that's why I believe strongly in paying it forward. And I try to do whatever I can to answer every single question and help people as much as I can. But I would say definitely know yourself, have a plan, and take the initiative. Own your decision to become a data scientist, and do everything you can to throw yourself into it, but be accountable to yourself for that decision. And just work hard, own it and be passionate about it, and don't let anybody tell you can't do it.
So that's some great advice. Like first, just take that initiative and then work hard, and don't think in broad terms. Just think of what area you want to go into. In that data science is quite broad. So just be specific. If you want to be an analyst, if you want to be a scientist, if you want to be a machine learning engineer, and then find out what skills are needed. Then ask. People are always ready to help, like yourself. Ask specific questions regarding in that area, and then take that advice and move forward.
Yeah, the specific questions are really important too. That I'm glad you brought that up, because again, a lot of the times I get these really broad questions, and I want so much to be able to read people's minds and be able to answer them, but it's impossible. So to the extent that you can ask very specific questions, and this is not just on, in a one-on-one interaction on LinkedIn, but in life in general, think about things before you talk. Think about things before you speak. What am I trying to get out of this? And also, what can you give back? So don't send somebody a resume on the first contact, right? Don't say, I need a job, help me find it, right? Get to know someone. Take the time to read their profile. Find something that resonates with you, start up a discussion, and grow that relationship, and ask them what you can do for them, right?
Exactly.
Know yourself, like I said, know your strengths, know what you can offer that person, and then see where it goes. You know, like I said, I mean, I think everybody wants to help. I don't know anybody who's not trying to help somebody else or not interested in helping somebody else. That's why you network. But I would say definitely ask specific questions and be willing to offer something in return.
Exactly. That's a really, really good point. Like, if you follow someone, if you want someone to help you, like people are ready to help, but make sure you interact with them, like their posts, comment on their posts, interact with them, build that relationship. And then
Yep.
one day, if you send them a message, can you have a quick look at my resume and give me some feedback? They'll probably do that. So that is really important to build that relationship before proceeding further with your question or anything like that. Thank you very much for being in the show, Genevieve. It was really a
You're welcome.
talking to you, and then I'm sure whoever's listening this will have learned a lot from what you've said regarding the journey that they will be taking into the world of data science. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been great talking to you, Nathan. Bye.
Thank you.